introduction, I wanted to read what Mary McNeil's friend Graeme Murray wrote about her. And this was a few years ago after Graeme and I met to discuss our time with Mary and what he and I might like to do in her memory. Graeme writes, Mary was a star in the underground art and music scene in downtown Vancouver in the 1960s. She was an artist, a musician, a poet, young, smart, talented, beautiful, and charismatic. Mary knew everybody in the scene in downtown Vancouver, and everybody knew Mary, and she had the brightest future imaginable. Being a friend of Mary somehow changed you for the better in ways large and small. But she also became the unexpected symbol of the self-destructive crash from the magic dream time of the 60s to the disillusion and cynicism that followed. In July 1974, at age 33, Mary died under suspicious circumstances in Roberts Creek on the Sunshine Coast. After her death, Jack Wasserman, Vancouver Sun columnist and chronicler of the shadier side of Vancouver, the waterfront city, and the jazz musicians and the saloon singers, gangsters, hookers, businessmen and hustlers who inhabit it, Wasserman devoted an entire column with a moving, heartfelt tribute to Mary's beauty and purity, not words often used in Wasserman's world. There is a narrative to Mary's life that's easier to understand at a distance, a rise and fall that seems inevitable now, but was hidden then. Some see a similarity to the Edie Sedgwick story, but unlike Edie, Mary was a very talented artist and an exuberant force of nature, very creative, and flawed as we all are, and hopelessly charming and utterly unforgettable. Mary lived life fully engaged in joyful, wide-eyed discovery, but in the end, to the horror of those who cherished her independent spirit, she lost control of her life and paid a terrible price. Some say this was her fate, and that she faced it, as she did with everything, with courage, and died fighting. But those who loved her still ache from the loss. In the fall of 1962, I was in my second year at the Vancouver School of Art, and I'd heard that another art student, Mary McNeil, and her friend Diane, who was a model in the art school, were looking for a place to rent. And at the art school, you knew when Mary was around because you could always hear her coming down the hallways long before you saw her. She was always talking and laughing as she moved around. She was a very vibrant young woman, very smart, and with a great sense of humor. Well, I had just rented for $65 a month the top floor of an old house in the lane off of Robson and Thurlow Streets. It had 3 bedrooms plus a studio room, a living room, a kitchen, etc., and I was looking for some housemates to help with the rent. So Mary and Diane met me after school one day at Duthie's bookstore on Robson Street where I worked. They got the key, walked the 2 blocks to the old house, and had a look around. They came back to the bookstore and said, "Hey, yes, it's great," and they moved in. Also, at this time, my musician friend Brent Titcomb was looking for a place in downtown Vancouver. So he rented a small bedroom in the Thurlow house and began his folk music career in the local coffee houses. Thurlow Chateau, as the house became known, was the hub of a lot of our adventures at that time. In the big studio room, I made the collages that were in my first art gallery exhibitions. And in the old house, in the summer of 1965, Mary conceived her 8mm movie, Please Keep Off the Grass, and you'll see clips from her movie coming up in this documentary. Not long after Mary moved into Thurlow Chateau, I met her good friend Sonny Choy, also known as Wayson Choy, who went on to become a well-known Canadian author. Sonny was interviewed a few years ago in Victoria by Graeme Murray about his memories of Mary, and many of the things that Sonny says about Mary in this video are how I feel as well, and he says it so much better than I ever could. I met filmmaker and actor Terry Loychuk in Thurlow Chateau. He used to visit Mary and I and bring along jugs of red wine, and we'd all get high tingled together and yak and tell stories and laugh a lot. and I'll never forget Terry coming over one evening with a joint and a Ravi Shankar record and saying, "Here, smoke this and listen to this." And you'll meet Terry a little later on in this video. So in this first clip from Mary's movie, you'll hear her in the living room talking to our friends as they're coming into Thurlow Chateau to be in the movie. But nobody knew why they had been invited, as Mary wanted the movie to be a surprise.
Forget it, Winnie. This is what happened.
I really want to sympathize with you about your rotten day, Chad.
Well, look, make it brief. I won't go there. So make it brief, Mary. I got a ticket because somebody stole my license plate.
We had so many far-out ideas about what this is going to be.
Okay, tell me.
Really great. That it was a celebration for Lonnie and Bob getting married. That you and Peter were getting married. That Bruce had come back into town. What else?
What else we hit on? Oh, we hit on a lot of things.
Yeah, really, really pleased.
I didn't think any of this. I just thought we were just going to have a hell of a party for no reason at all.
I don't know, from things Bob has told me, it's kind of like you walk up and you say, Bob, be there. Just be there, Bob. And he won't.
Mom? Who's coming?
Lloyd! And he gone? No, I didn't, did I? I didn't shake.
Oh, this is perfect. This is perfect. Everybody's here.
Okay, all right. We're going to make a movie. We've got all the sound, we've got all the equipment.
Cameras.
We've got cameras, we've got everything, mics, pickups, everything. And we're going to go down to Stanley Park today and we're
We have
going
a
to make a
special
movie.
spot picked out.
Absolutely, the whole thing.
When I think back about Mary and the first time I met her, it was through my carpool to UBC, and two of her friends were part of that carpool, Felix and Donna. And somewhere along the line, Mary came along, came along for a ride and all that, and she was so full of hilarity and instant warmth that I think I took to her right away, as many people did, or they were, afraid of that. Right. And then eventually we got to sit together and talk and so on.
Was she going to UBC too?
No, she wasn't going to UBC. No, she was riding along, or Donna would be meeting with her, and then we'll get together. And the end of the 50s at that time, people were just realizing this younger generation that Mary was part of. I was about, I'm sure I was 10 years older than her, it seemed to me, in my old age kind of thing, but not in years, but in kind of feeling. I came from Chinatown. She came from a rather hip crowd, and so on and so forth, and I was going to UBC. I wanted to be a writer, And she wanted to be an artist, and eventually, of course, she went to art school and disappeared from my life for a while. But we would meet, and anytime we met, we just like to sit and talk.
Right, right.
And it's interesting, you know, I may have had book learning, but she had life learning. And that made an absolute difference, that we should kind of be a yin and yang conversation. But she had a rainbow variety of friends. And I'm not surprised that she counted everybody important to her, because she became important to the individual that she met.
As Sonny Choy has mentioned, Mary had a rainbow of friends, and one of the places where she met a lot of artists and musicians was the Inquisition Coffee House, run by Howie Bateman. It was on Seymour Street, just off of Georgia. And Mary worked there and helped out and got to know a lot of people. One of the people she introduced me to one evening was Buffy St. Marie, a short conversation. One of the other people that Mary got involved with for a short while, I think, it was jazz saxophone player John Handy. John Handy had played with the Charlie Mingus band, and he was playing a club in Vancouver, and met Mary and was intrigued, and came calling around to the Thurlow Chateau house with flowers, a handful. I remember him coming to the door with a handful of a bouquet of flowers for Mary. Sweet guy. Years later, when Mary and I went on a trip in my Volkswagen van down to San Francisco, we went to a small club and saw John Handy and his band and said hello. The main man that was of great interest and spent some time with Mary was Bruce Langhorne, also known as Mr. Tambourine Man, the man who inspired Dylan to write the song Mr. Tambourine Man. And Bruce Langhorne played guitar with a lot of musicians, and at this particular time he was playing second guitar with Odetta and on a North American tour. Played Vancouver. Bruce met Mary, and he fell in love with her, and he dropped out of the tour and he moved into 754 Thurlow Chateau with Mary. And this time I was just living a block away down the lane, so I got to visit Bruce with his guitar and his tambourine, and as a real sweetheart of a guy. One time Bruce came over to my place with Mary and with his tambourine, and he got a groove, a rhythm going, and people started joining in. I had a conga drum, so I was playing that. People grabbed pots and pans out of the kitchen, were beating them with spoons and scraps of firewood, and Bruce was like the Pied Piper. He led this gang of people. There was maybe 6 or 8 of us, all just bopping to the rhythm, following Bruce around the house and out the front door and around the big parking lot that was in front of the house. That was a night to remember for sure. And the next day I found most of my pots and pans were all beaten to rat shit. The bottoms were all beaten in and all bent out of shape. So Mary and Bruce lived together for, I think it was about 3 months. And then Bruce decided he had to go back to New York. That was the easiest way for him to make money, was to go back to New York and play guitar. And Bruce was a sweetheart of a guy, and I know Mary really liked him. At the beginning of Mary's movie, there was a comment that the occasion for people getting together to make Mary's movie, the occasion could possibly have been that Bruce was back in town. But no, Mary went on to, you know, many other relationships in her life, and of course that story is part of what this video documentary is about.
And more I realized she was going with a hipper crowd. She was helping to run the Hoot Nannies at Howie Bateman's folk club and so on, and I would get access to that. I mean, really, it was ridiculous for me to meet all these rather famous people, and here I was not able to hold a tune. But she just wanted them to meet me, and I found them interesting. And it was her that always kept me aware that the world was bigger than I thought it was. And it was a lot more fun, and I should have had some of it. Not very much time, but the most memorable place I remember was when King and Mary and Helen all lived on Thurlow Street, the Thurlow house. Yeah, all kinds of parties took place, and God knows what was happening in the bathtub. I would be asked to come down because Mary would want us to go down there, or have me go down there and meet people, and there would be a pizza party or whatever they were having. I just stood around and had a good time thinking, my gosh, you know, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a bit about life at the house at 754 Thurlow Street. And when we lived there, Mary had a nighttime job as a cigarette girl at the Cave Supper Club, about 3 or 4 blocks away in downtown Vancouver. Long slim legs, fishnet stockings, and kind of a Playboy bunny costume with cleavage. Well, Mary was popular at the club, and she met lots of celebrities that performed there. Mary told me once about hanging out backstage with Diana Ross and the Supremes. And because everybody smoked in those days, Mary actually made pretty good money selling cigarettes. And then sometime in 1964, I moved out of Thurlow Chateau for a while. Another story for another time. And at one point I lived for a short while in another shared house near Lost Lagoon. Well, one night Mary came over with a joint and turned me on to marijuana for the very first time. That was the evening I saw that my pet cats were high as well. Then Mary and I went across the street with the munchies to a burger joint and got the giggles so bad we could hardly eat our food. Not long after that, it seems, I moved back into Thurlow Chateau to share it with Mary, and this was when we first started experimenting with LSD. Mary had scored some sugar cubes from artist friend Lloyd McKinnon, who brought them up from San Francisco, and it was Mary who coached me through my first psychedelic experience. While high on acid, we walked across the West End to meet up with my girlfriend Leslie, who was sewing clothes at Yvonne's boutique. We went to the White Spot for supper, and all I had was a coffee, and I watched the gold flecks in the arborite countertop flicker and dance across the counter like a million golden insects. Then a walk through the noisy city back to Thurlow Chateau to listen to some good jazz and come down easy. It was a fascinating first experience. While Mary worked at the Cave Supper Club, she got involved with Pete, the lighting man and electrician. And it was Pete who provided a reel-to-reel tape deck that ran on car batteries with 100-foot cables for the microphones, and this provided the soundtrack for Mary's movie.
Wouldn't believe it. Just fantastic.
Hey, King, do you want to wait till the movie's finished before you tell us how great you are?
There isn't any more Coca-Cola, eh?
I'm really sorry, Mr. Block, please.
Oh, I'm really wired for sound here.
No, when I think of Mary, I remember her great, great warm laughter. She's, at least with me, she was always hugging me, not believing that I could possibly say some of the absurd things I said, very, very sure of myself. And of course, she knew so much about the world than I did. And when she laughed, I knew, uh-oh, I better rethink this, you know. So she kind of kept me honest with what I thought was real.
No, Lord Jesus Christ! Lord Jesus Christ, man! I really hate to do this. It's been replayed.
Balls.
Now that isn't what's supposed to be in the film.
Oh.
Get out of the way, you two asshole chicks. Hey, man. I really hate to do this.
In fact, oh my gosh, I'm old enough now to confess this. She offered me my first and only acid trip. I had a great time because she guided me and she warned me what was going to happen and all this, and I wanted to know. Certainly I never forgot it. But I thought how sweet and gentle and less fearful anything would be if I was with Mary. And that was who she was to me. Somebody who was willing to say to me, you can try this, I'll make sure you won't get hurt. I wish somebody had said that to her. But she was like that for a lot of us. A lot of the people I knew that she knew anyways.
The first recollection you had was where?
At your place, you being King Anderson.
Thurlow Street.
The old house on Thurlow.
In the lane,
alley,
yeah.
And that was, and somehow or other we ended up, there was a gang of us sort of living in the West End at the time, and we would sort of travel around. That was Hiscox and, you know.
And Wally?
And Wally. And,
Didn't Mary meet Wally somewhere along the line?
Yeah. And, well, I think we met at your place. Like somehow or other there was a party circuit, and
somehow you guys ended up at our place.
And of course there was a Mutual down there, which sold 20-cent burgers.
Yeah, Mutual Coffee Bar.
Yeah, and that was always a great place to fuel up.
Yeah.
And get the taste of beer or cheap wine out of your mouth. It was Mutual burgers. Anyway, we went to your place, and we. As I was saying before, yours was the first really decorated apartment. Most of the places were like bachelor pads, with underwear hanging.
The locker room
really,
complex.
And it was not masculine to start to have any sense of, organization, and certainly not anything, neat. That was feminine.
Yeah, we had a bit of art to hang on the walls. I think was the difference.
Yeah. And, but the place had very much a powerful aesthetic to it, and it was okay, and it was masculine, and it was good. And in that context, I remember we went there one night, and somehow or other there was a sense of it was important. It's if someone was smart or not. That intelligence started to become it wasn't the kind of car you drove, or which were the standard currency at the time.
Right.
It was like the kind of car you drove, if you were high school, college, You know, these were the standard things, and how you dressed, of course. Were you folk? Were you,
Yeah.
neat?
Yeah.
You know, and suddenly none of this mattered. Appearance didn't matter. There was something, although appearance was very much part.
Yeah.
Looked after in the atmosphere. There was a very much a kind of a contact. It's like a very personal kind of intimate engagement that I found myself in, and somehow or other there was a chess game going on.
Oh yeah, because Mary did play chess.
There was a chess game going on. Now, whether, I don't know how, but somehow or other I ended up, starting a chess game, I think, with someone, having them have to leave and Mary substituting, right? And the first, whoever it was, it was mono o mono, Now it was femmo, right? So the whole thing just sort of escalated in my mind. And I thought, oh no, like I've got to prove that I'm an intelligent, sensitive guy with chess, and I'm not very good at chess. Now I'm up against this hard-nosed cave cigarette girl, right?
The cave? Yes, you have the job of the cigarette.
Who's got like all the, all the chops, and, down pat.
The verbal and intellectual chops.
Like I'm dead. So I'm thinking kind of about the chess game, not to embarrass myself, but the whole thing I'm projecting is like, Mary, like, kill me softly. Which he did.
And then you and Wally kept coming back with big jugs of red wine and visiting and hanging out. And it was great. It's great fun.
And then, we were, somehow or other, she beat me at chess in a way that I wanted to come back for more, and made me feel good about it. And of course there was like, and the next time you come, bring some wine.
That's great.
That was great. That was good. I think that was the first, I don't know if that was the first time I met or, was part of a group that she was involved in, but that was certainly the first time that we sat down and shared our heads a little bit,
It's great.
And then finally, she had a chance when I was in Toronto, where I was living by that time and teaching and all that, to come out to Toronto. And I thought, well, she could stay with me if she wanted. And she came out. She wanted to see what Toronto was all about because she'd heard so much. And she met Larry, who made her this beautiful macrame costume because she told Larry what she wanted to do. And suddenly I realized she was telling me, I'm going to be a stripper. I'm going to in this dance club, but it's just a go-go dancer. You don't strip really, so she had a kind of quality idea of what she would do. And she was a showstopper. There are pictures of her wearing that beautiful, beautiful costume.
Toronto. And in 1972 I was traveling and playing guitar with Brent Titcomb, and when we were in Toronto I met up with Mary at the shop she put together. The shop was called One of a Kind, Only One in the World shop, and Mary had been traveling in Europe with her sister Annie and spending time in the Mediterranean for a while. And then she came back to Toronto and set up this shop with a group of artist friends. And wow, what a place it was. Full of all kinds of beautiful and funky goods and lots of handmade things and antique things and artful clothing and paintings. Fun things, like everything from New York gumball machines to Art Nouveau alabaster sculptures. And I did see Mary one time do her exotic go-go dance at some strip club down on Yonge Street. And Mary was tall and slim, as you know, and good looking with some nice curves. And she had some pretty smooth moves when she danced in that macrame string costume.
Mary wasn't that interested in making a go of it. She wanted the freedom to have her life the way she could have it. So before I knew it, she left for Vancouver. And from that point on, we would just catch on with each other, and we would meet and so on. I would get glimpses of her life and where she was. And in the 70s, then the tragedy occurred. But I could see now, when I look back, her energy and her destiny was to go someplace where that freedom would cost, but she wasn't aware that it was a dangerous cost. And I've always regretted that. I don't know that anybody could have warned her. She was going to take the risks and love who she loves, and not always judging well. But what a great friend she was for so many of us, simply because she lived a life that we could glimpse. If we didn't want it, we could still appreciate it and admire it, as a matter of fact. Jack Wasserman understood that and wrote a wonderful piece about his relationship to her, in case at her death people misinterpreted that this was simply another, shabby scandal. It wasn't. It was a heartbreaking tragedy. And we lost a lot when Mary disappeared from us. I can't imagine I ever wasted my time with Mary, except when she got too aroused by all this talking, she had to get out and break out and do something. It was time for me to say, have a great time. I'll see you next week. Because it wasn't my energy, and certainly I'm just this square peg in a round and triangle world. And it was a good relationship. It was a fun one, because it was one that was odd and exciting and deeply felt. I was very lucky. And I have that relationship now with her sister Anne, and we're quite close. And I laughed when she thought she was afraid that Mary might be going with this Chinaman. And of course Anne thinks, oh yes, I've paid for that many times. No, she hasn't. She was worried and concerned about Mary's welfare, because in the 1950s, it was still a very racist time. And one had to be pure Chinese or pure Irish or pure whatever. And now, oh my gosh, Annie's way ahead of any of us. She's transcended even the idea that we're human, I'm sure. She thinks we're greater than that. I mean, what a wonderful pair of sisters I got to know. They really, really had a great sense of other people's humanity and their own.
I left Vancouver and moved to Roberts Creek on the Sunshine Coast in 1970. And early in 1972 I traveled and played guitar with Brent. And when I got back to Roberts Creek that summer, it seems like Mary was there not long afterwards. And in 1973 I started working at the Lynn Canyon Ecology Center in North Vancouver, and I got Mary some work doing some drawings of animals for a display on omnivores, herbivores, and carnivores. Sometime in 1973, Mary and I stayed up the whole night talking about a new movie we wanted to make. a kind of sequel to Please Keep Off the Grass. It was to be a love story, a musical, with Brent as the leading man, and Grindle, a musician and a dancer, was to be the leading lady. I met Grindle on the ferry one day when she was on her way from Vancouver to Roberts Creek to visit Mary. And later that year I introduced Grindle to Brent, and in real life, a true story, they fell in love and lived together for the next 5 years. Mary and I never got to make a movie about their story. Recently I was in touch with my musician friend Sam, who lives over in Roberts Creek, and this is what he had to say about Mary. Summer, 1974. My first weeks staying in the creek with Pete and Sandy, who we met in Mexico. And Pete took me up to Dal's one morning for a typical creek kitchen table session. That is, coffee, whiskey, dope, and youthful hippie good cheer. Mary walked in and made a very immediate impression. Short cropped hair, cowboy boots, tight Levi's, and lots of crazy beat charisma. An artist to the core. What I always remembered was her entrance. To get to a seat at the far end of a crowded, heavy wooden table, she simply walked up onto the tabletop and strolled its length, very wild and hip. Only time I ever saw her, and never forgot her.
The climate of the 70s, as we moved in the early 70s, was that all the experience was yours to have. And if you're caught in something or whatever, then you have to learn how to make decisions to move out of it. And sometimes you don't get that chance. And I suspect that it probably was a darker time for Mary near the end of her life, because we now know that she was terribly ill as well. And I don't know what the illness was, but you know, with drugs and the mix of the fact that AIDS was rising in the population at that time, and so many of our mutual friends were disappearing by the time the late 70s and early 80s came. I'm haunted by the fact that Mary died so young, but at the same time I recognize, you know, before she died, she drew this uncanny picture. I mean, she's always doing these amazing sketches which review her brilliant talent. She drew a picture of what we thought was herself, or something about something coming towards her, and it was, you know, death riding on a horse. I remember that saying from Cervantes, when Don Quixote is approached by the dark rider. What is the quote now? I see a pale horse, pale rider, and he bids me mount. And when I was shown that drawing, I hope it exists still, because somebody, I think, kept it. There was this horse and there was this rider bidding her to mount. And that was some of the last time that I saw her. And she was kind of aware that she wasn't well. But then when she was okay again, she had flashes of her old self as if there was nothing wrong.
Enough of this squabble. Be gone!
Get out of the way, you two assholes, Jack.
Right.
Oh. Okay, Pete.
This poster behind me that's about Mary was done by Graeme Murray, who also had vivid memories about her. And it was Graeme, as you've seen, who interviewed Wayson Choy in Victoria about his memories of Mary. So we go back to Roberts Creek, and it must have been about in the winter of 73-74 when Mary got together with her boyfriend John and a couple of friends, and they opened up the Goon Saloon in downtown Roberts Creek. The saloon was on the second floor of the old store and had been open for business off and on for a couple of years. It was an underground by invitation only speakeasy up the back stairs, kind of a quasi-hip, Wild West outlaw hangout booze can, smoke a joint, drink hard liquor, card games with real money on the table, and any number of strange characters who came and went. And yeah, there was lots of weird shit that happened there from time to time. For the most part, the local RCMP turned a blind eye to the place. This was where Mary started to go down a slippery slope with the crowd at the Goon Saloon, smoking cigarettes, smoking pot, snorting coke, drinking booze, staying up all night and taking pills to sleep and pills to wake up. All in the name of having a good time, I guess. She was very speedy in those days, but she still had her enthusiasm to make the scene cool and beautiful, filled with live music, good art, and beautiful people. But she was losing her health. She had a short temper and got upset very quickly. I was startled when these times happened, when she blew up at me for reasons I can only vaguely remember. Mary was also showing up at my house after fights with her boyfriend, who was also quick to freak out with her, and it seems he was beating her up. I saw welts on her cheeks and bruised wrists, and she's telling me with tears and wailing about how she wants to make it happy with him. Our dear friend Hallie said she tried to talk to Mary, but Mary was convinced that all was cool, she could handle it, and everything would work out. It was a sunny afternoon in the summer of 1974 when Chris, the young boy who lived next door, came into my yard saying, "Hey King, Mad Mary's dead, Mad Mary's dead." And everything snapped into sharp focus and then into slow motion from there. From what could be gathered, Mary and John had a fight. He might have hit her really hard, or maybe she was pushed hard and fell and hit the corner of a table, something like that. Mary passed out, an ambulance was called, and she was DOA by the time they got her to the Seashell Hospital. The autopsy revealed that Mary died from a broken spleen, and John disappeared the next day, and later that year was arrested in a pot raid on Vancouver Island. He was charged with murder and then deported back to the US, where he was wanted by the FBI for guns and marijuana possession. I heard later that John ended up in the McNeil Island Penitentiary in the Puget Sound for 3 years. Nobody here on the coast has ever seen him since. Everyone in Roberts Creek and in Vancouver, family and friends, were totally blown away by what happened to Mary. There's many times, so many times I wished I could share with Mary how life has gone since then. Such a wonderful friend, smart, talented, funny, good looking, eager to embrace life, and very cool. And we all thought we'd live forever.
When Mary's mother was upset that something had happened to Mary and people weren't talking. When Mary was discovered dead, what was the circumstances, all that, people would not talk frankly with her. She asked everybody who was there, please tell me. And then what happened ironically was before Mary was killed the following week or so, I had arrived in Vancouver and I phoned Mary long distance. And she was at a party and she shouted out, "Oh, Sonny's here, Sonny's here," meaning that I was in Vancouver, I was in BC. But I was not at Roberts Creek. Eventually, Mary's mother was talking to some of her friends and she asked, was Sonny there? And of course, they remember Mary saying, "Sonny's here." And someone said, "Oh yeah, Sonny was there." I couldn't convince the mother that I was not there, and she thought I might be part of a conspiracy. And that broke my heart to some degree, but Annie calmed me down and said, there's so many things going on with her mom now that you just have to let things be, you know. It's no use, she said, he said, what's the truth? It was very confusing, a very confusing time. So, yeah, and Mary's mother haunted her because I think they shared dreams that Mary might have fulfilled if she had much more focus, because she had all the talent. But she wasn't that kind of person, and I guess she wasn't meant to be. Nope, I now think back, I probably was Mary's quiet time.
Yeah.
Noisy as I found her, I was probably considered her quiet time. Because she would always say, we have to get together, I want to be with you. And we'd spend a few hours together, or half a day, or 20 minutes between bus rides or something, you know, and it would be always right to the heart of things. There are people like her still, and they are still in danger because, of course, they give everything out and can't spend the time being a little more careful. But life is unfair, you know. Things happen that are unfair. But then the great fairness in the world is that such people have given so much to everyone else. Some of us don't even deserve it, and we got it. So I think, bravo, Mary.
I really hate to do this. It's been replaced.